Welcome to the Deep Dive. You've given us a really fascinating pile of material today, all looking at this trend in English, baby talk, but used by adults.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, isn't it? Words you'd normally only use with toddlers, like doggo or small.
Right, and now they're just everywhere, in chats, online, even sometimes out loud.
Exactly. So you start wondering, well, why? What's the draw?
And like, when is it okay? When can you call your cat a floofer and have people get it?
Hmm.
Versus, well, just sounding a bit weird.
Or worse, getting it really wrong. How do you actually use this stuff effectively?
hmm And the sources you shared sort of break it down into what, three main types?
Yeah, that's right. There's the classic cutesy, like dog to doggy,
Yeah.
pretty standard stuff.
Okay, the traditional ones.
Then you've got the internet absurd. That's where things get a bit stranger, like small becoming small.
Okay, the online phenomenon type things.
Exactly. And the third is the toddler mimic. So that's things like little turning into whittle or maybe hungry becoming hangry, though that one's maybe a bit more mainstream now.
Hangry definitely feels like it crossed over. It's such a weird little linguistic world.
It really is.
And it's not just theory, is it? You mentioned that listener story calling their cat a floofer on a work Zoom.
Yeah. And apparently the whole team just sort of adopted it.
I see. That really shows how this stuff catches on in actual day-to-day life.
It absolutely does.
So let's get into it.
Yeah.
Why are adults even doing this? What's the thinking? And crucially, when is it actually? All right.
Well, one big idea from the sources is that it can kind of soften things, make interactions less harsh.
Soften things. How so?
Think about instead of saying you're being rude, you might say, "Who's a grumpy boy then?" It just lands differently, doesn't it?
Yeah. Okay, it takes the edge off. Disarming, maybe?
Exactly. Disarming. That's a good word for it. It reframes things.
Makes sense. And then, of course, there's the whole internet angle.
Sure.
That seems huge here.
Oh, definitely. The sources really point to online culture embracing this playful, sometimes totally absurd language, like danger noodle for a snake.
Yeah, that one's brilliant. It feels like a shared code almost. If you know it, you're kind of in the group.
Right. And some of it seems almost random, like why thick, but that absurdity is part of the appeal, part of the fun, maybe.
Could it be that the internet's just like a safer space to play with language, less formal, fewer rules?
That's a really good point. Yeah, maybe the lower stakes online, the anonymity, it just lets these things spread and change really fast within communities.
Okay, so that's the online world. But what about, IRL,
Hmm.
in real life? When does it work offline? Context seems key.
Absolutely critical. The material highlights job-specific uses, like vets.
Oh,
You often hear vets or vet techs using words like pupper or talking about zoomies. It builds a connection with the pet owner.
yeah, it shows you're on the same page. You get the whole cute animal thing, creates warmth.
Exactly. But like we saw in the sources, take that same language into, say, a courtroom.
Oh, God, no. Imagine a lawyer saying, Your Honor, my whittled client is innocent.
Huh, precisely. It would completely undermine everything. The professional context is vital.
So the advice from the sources is pretty clear then.
Very clear and pretty funny, actually, basically. If you wouldn't say it to a baby, probably don't say it to HR.
That's a good rule of thumb. Okay, so we know why people might use it and when it might be okay. But how do you do it without sounding, well, childish?
Yeah, that's the tricky bit, isn't it? How to be playful, not infantile.
hmm
The material suggests sticking to what it calls internet-approved words.
Internet approved. Like there's a list.
Not officially, but there are terms that have gained general acceptance online. Things like doggo, human, maybe bleep.
A bleep, right? When their tongue's sticking out just a tiny bit.
Exactly that. These words tend to be seen as lighthearted, sort of knowing internet humor rather than just silly,
Yeah.
less likely to make people cringe.
Okay, so there's a sort of agreed upon lexicon for online cuteness. But where's the line?
Yeah.
When does funny become annoying?
Well, the sources give that example contrasting, like, look at that puicious face, which is a lot,
Yeah, that's pretty full on.
versus just using an established term like, oh, look at this chunky cat. The first one feels like you're actually mimicking a baby. The second uses a known internetism.
Right, and the first one sounds, well, potentially irritating if you hear it too much.
Exactly. Overdoing the phonetic baby talk like, I'm so sweepy, can get grating fast. It doesn't have that same layer of, like, shared internet joke. Moderation is key.
So use it sparingly, stick to the known terms.
Hmm.
Got it. What about work, though? Even if it's not HR or judge, just like emails with colleagues.
Yeah, the sources say be really cautious there. It depends so much on your specific workplace culture.
So maybe a quick, playful thing is okay sometimes.
Possibly. Like the example given. Maybe in an internal chat after fixing a small software issue, you might write, squash the tiny bug with a checkmark emoji. In some teams, that might be fine.
But definitely not.
Definitely not escalating to, we fixed the itty-bitty buggy-wuggy. That, the sources imply, could be crossing a major line. Context, your relationships, the company vibe, it all matters.
Know your audience.
Yeah.
Always good advice. And I love the listener hack, testing out new baby talk terms on Twitter first.
Isn't that great? A totally modern way to, like, crowdsource linguistic acceptability before you try it somewhere sensitive.
A real-time cringe check. Okay, so shifting slightly, the material also touches on cultural differences, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same everywhere.
No, definitely not. Even within English-speaking countries, we saw examples from the US, the UK, Australia.
So what stood out there? What's different in, say, the U.S.?
Well, the US examples mentioned were things like puppers, sneck, S-N-E-K, and also heckin'.
Heckin'.
Yeah, used as an intensifier, like heckin' good boy.
Yeah.
Apparently just means very good dog, but, cuter, milder.
Huh. So it's like a substitute for mild swearing almost, but in baby talk form.
Sort of seems that way, yeah.
Hmm.
A way to be enthusiastic without being too intense, maybe.
Interesting. Okay, what about the Brits?
The UK examples felt a bit different. Terms like cheeky, whiskers, tummy, and the phrase cheeky little monkey, just meaning a mischievous child.
Right. Some of those feel a bit more
Yeah,
traditional, less purely internet-driven than snack.
exactly. They seem more integrated into general informal speech, maybe for longer, less tied specifically to recent online trends, perhaps.
Okay. And Australia. What was the key takeaway there?
The main one mentioned was simply bub.
Bub.
Yeah, just bub. As a common term of endearment, especially for children, it's simple, but it shows again that these little words have their own specific cultural flavors.
Absolutely. Wow. Okay, so if we try and pull this all together, this whole baby talk thing is, well, way more complex than it looks.
Definitely.
You've got these different types, the cutesy classics, the weird internet stuff, the toddler mimics.
Mm-hmm. And different reasons for using them, softening things, building online groups, just being playful.
And the rules, the unwritten rules, are super important, especially about where and when you use it. Work versus friends, online versus offline.
Context is everything. And culture matters too, as we saw.
The internet's clearly poured fuel on the fire, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Creating new words, spreading them like wildfire.
For sure, it's amplified it massively. But maybe the basic human drivers are still the same. Wanting to connect, use humor, be a bit playful.
Yeah, maybe that's always been there. The internet just gave it new forms. This has been really, really insightful. Makes you think differently about everyday words.
It does, doesn't it?
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. How do you use these words? If you do, or why don't you, what does your own use of or avoidance of this kind of language say about how you communicate?
Yeah, and what other weird language trends have you noticed lately? Definitely some food for thought there.